Hello and welcome, football fans, to the Squirtle Paydirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nixon, Diesel Horse Law Firm. I am your host, Andy Campbell. Hard to believe we are already in Week 8 of the Oklahoma High School football season. I am joined today, as always, by Tom Nelson and Mark Rogers, who will be calling our games of the week throughout the football season. We have two special guests tonight. First up is Tony Wilson. Mark, you want to introduce Tony?
Lug Nut. Tony Wilson is a man that needs no introduction. He's got many nicknames. Political candidate, the voice of the Chandler Lions, owns 2 food trucks. I mean, we could go on and on and on. So he's under a lot of pressure tonight. Hopefully he can bring something to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Tony, great to have you on. And like Mark said, Tony is the voice of the Chandler Lions on the Squirrel Network, chandlerlions.tv. Big game for Chandler this week, and we'll be discussing that here in just a few minutes. Our next special guest is Whit Carter. We had Whit on the show a couple of years ago. Are glad to have him back on. Whit is a graduate of Sulphur High School and then attended UCO after Sulphur. Whit works in medical sales and has also been a sports reporter for the Sulphur Times Democrat for the past 12 years now, I believe. And he has helped us out at Squirtle since 2017. So, Whit, great to have you back on the show. Our final guest, as always, Jacob Dieselhorst, the line setting, score predicting lawyer from Maples, Nixon, Dieselhorst. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into our Pick'em games this week. Pick'em game number 1 will go to Class A District 5. The Tonkawa Buccaneers, 5-2 on the season, 2-2 in district play, but they face their toughest test yet as they go on the road to face the number 2 team in Class A, Hominy. Hominy is 7-0 and just rolling opponents this year. Tom Nelson, kick us off.
Well, A5 is super competitive with 5 teams with winning records. Hominy and Woodland are undefeated at the top. Tonkawa is in real danger of being the odd man out with losses already to Pawnee and Morrison. Getting their offense rolling against good teams has been a problem. We saw them struggle offensively in beating Perry 8-0 a few weeks ago on the game of the week. They've only managed 13 and 7 points in those losses to Pawnee and Morrison. That said, Hominy is a very good team. They're giving up just 10 points a game. They've already beaten Pawnee and Morrison 55-22 and 42-8. You know, could Hominy be guilty of looking past this week to next week's Titanic matchup with undefeated Woodland? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think Hominy should roll to 8-0.
Mark?
Yeah, Tonkawa's had some difficulty in the last couple of weeks. That was a little bit of a surprise that they lost to Pawnee. I'm not sure if they were an underdog in Jake's line in that game or not, but I would think that they're definitely an underdog in this game, and I think that the Hominy Bucks get a win and are a team that can definitely potentially head to the semifinals in Class A.
Tony Wilson.
Yeah, Hominy has just been rolling up people, like you guys said, and they're just going to be. I think they'll continue this week, and I don't think it'll even be a contest.
Whit Carter.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with the trend. I will say I may take the under here, depending on what Jake has. But yeah, I think from the little that I know about Class A, it seems like Hominy is got their sights set on practicing on Thanksgiving, and they should have no problem this week.
Jacob Resource.
I was doing a little reading up on Hominy. I didn't realize how huge their football program is in the state. I mean, they've won 5 state championships. They've 25 district championships. They've only missed the playoffs twice since 1977. That's really an impressive run, and they are definitely right now. Fairview and Hominy are the 2 teams that look like a little bit of cut above the rest in Class A. Tonkawa, their best chance in this game is to slow the game down. I think, like Whit was saying, try to ugly it up. Keep the ball away from Hominy. Get them off the field when they have the chance to on 3rd down. But Tonkawa, for example, Tonkawa lost to Pawnee 34-13. Hominy beat them 55-22. Tonkawa lost to Morrison 18-7. Hominy beat them 42-8. And at Hominy makes this even more of a lopsided game. I have Hominy a 30-point favorite at home, and I have them winning the game 38-8.
There's going to be more calls coming in this week. The Squirtle office is going to be busy.
Entire panel taking the Hominy Bucks. Let's go to Class 5A1 for the next Pick'em game. The El Reno Indians have won 3 in a row and currently occupy a playoff spot in that district, but face a tough test on the road at Lawton Mac. The Highlanders are 6-1 overall with their first loss coming last week at Midwest City. Mark Rogers, tell us what to watch for in this 5A matchup.
All right, this is an interesting game because if you do the transitive property there, like Jake was just explaining, then you're going to have El Reno in this game because El Reno beat Midwest City, and then Midwest City handled Mac pretty easily last week. I'm going to go with the home team here, though. I'm going to take Lawton Mac over El Reno in a close game. I think both these teams are really good. They're going to be battling for some playoff standing in this district. I think both these teams will make the playoffs with MacArthur and then Elgin. But I think this is a critical game, but I'm going to take Mac in this one.
Tom?
After starting off the season 1-3, El Reno's won 3 straight. They're in a 3-way tie for second in 5A1 with Midwest City and Lawton Mac. They're all looking up at Elgin, but this one is huge for both teams. MacArthur was rolling along with 6 wins to start the season before they hit that brick wall last week, losing to Midwest City 42-7. This matchup kind of reminds me of last year. MacArthur was 5-2, coming off of a loss to Midwest City. El Reno was 2-5 last year at this point. El Reno won last year 32-29. They went on to win 4 straight to finish the regular season, got into the playoffs. That loss sent MacArthur into a spiral that saw them lose 4 of 5 to finish the season. With Elgin waiting on the road next week, the Highlanders can't afford to have that happen again. And I think the memory of what happened last year and the fact that they were playing at home is going to be enough. I will go with MacArthur going over the hump, and they'll be knocking off El Reno on Friday night.
Like that.
Well, we've seen that El Reno is capable of putting up a lot of points. That they had that shootout game against Noble, and they are pretty hot right now, 3-0. But I think last week's game with MacArthur against Midwest City was somewhat of a fluke. They got dismantled. I look for Lawton Mac to bounce back this weekend with a close victory.
Wait, Carter.
Yeah, so I know El Reno's got a really talented team this year. One of my buddies coaches at Chickasha. He was super impressed with them. They got beat pretty bad the first week, but I'm going to go with the home team. Traditional, very, very good program in Lawton Mac. I'll take them to win a close one this week.
Jacob.
So, yeah, I think everybody was surprised when they saw that score, Midwest City against Lawton Mac last week of 42-7. Just, ran over them. And if you look at the Daily Oklahoman rankings, El Reno jumped into the top 10 this week. Lawton Mac dropped out of the top 10. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. Lawton Mac, obviously playing at home is a big advantage for them. But, El Reno's riding a hot streak right now and coming off a couple of very impressive wins. One of those games against Midwest City, the team that just, handled Lawton Mac. So, Lawton Mac, the home team, I got them a 3.5-point favorite at home. But I got El Reno going into Lawton Mac, winning their 4th game in a row, 28-21. Upset special.
Jake's on the island.
Jake going with the El Reno Indians. Let's go to Class 2A, the number 1 team in Class 2A and defending champs, Washington Warriors. Take the short drive to Purcell on Friday to take on the Dragons. Purcell is having a strong season with a 6-1 record and undefeated in district play. Tom, does Washington get another district title on Friday at Purcell?
Well, the last 2 undefeated teams in 2A3 are going to meet, and both teams are a full 2 games up on the rest of the district. So, yep, this is basically for the district title. Let's make the case for Purcell really quick. They're putting together their best season since they went 7-4 back in 2018. They've won 5 straight since they lost to Pauls Valley in week 1. They've gotten it done on the ground. Their quarterback, Cash Guthmiller, and running back Boston Knowles combining for over 200 yards rushing a game. But Cash is only completing 47% of his passes for a total of 330 yards passing on the season. So Washington can pin their ears back and focus on stopping the run. Purcell seems pretty one-dimensional, and Washington most definitely is not. The Warriors have won 9 in a row in this series. They put up at least 40 points in the last 4 against Purcell, and I think they'll continue those streaks.
Mark?
I've got Washington in this game. I think that they're rolling. That they're going to be tough to beat. They're the favorite in Class 2A. I don't know that there's any team that can really give them much of a challenge in 2A this year. So I've got the Warriors going to Conger Field and get the 10th straight win in the series.
Tony Wilson.
Well, listening to the middle of the day show today, it sounded like that it was a who's who list of Division One football players at Washington. I think this game, even though Purcell's having a great season, I think that they kind of find out who the cream of the crop is in 2A as well with the
Whit?
Warriors.
Yeah. So I mean, I got to see Washington play Sulphur in week 1 this year, week 0 actually. Man, obviously everyone knows they're really good. I think the quarterback doesn't get talked about enough. He makes a ton of plays. He is as good of a high school quarterback at that level that you'll see. Their offensive line is underrated. They're really, really good. I mean, Sulphur played really well against them in week 1 and had to play really well to have a chance just to get down 4, and then it just snowballed. So some weird stuff can happen at Conger Field. One time when I was playing there, we got totally hosed, which I'm not bitter about, obviously, still. But Washington's going to roll them. It's a big win for Washington this week.
Jacob.
You know, Washington's pretty much been just naming their score against every team they've played. And these teams have played common opponents across the district. And one game that stands out to me is the Lindsay game. Purcell, clawed their way to a 35-34 win over Lindsay. On the other hand, Washington beat them 54-0. And I know it's not always best to compare games against games because of turnovers and weather and all these other factors, but Washington shows up every night. I'm trying to think of a game in the last few years we've been doing the show where Washington didn't play up to their potential. I think there was a game last season that they had to kind of squeak by to win. I don't see that happening this week. I do think Purcell is a tough place to play. I think Purcell's a playoff team, but Washington is the cream of the crop in Class 2A, and they have been for a long time. I got them a 28.5-point favorite on the road, and I have them winning the game 49-20.
Entire panel taking the Warriors. I think through 3 games, we only have one alternate pick, and that's Jacob taking El Reno with the upset in game number 2 that we talked about. All right, game number 4, 4A District 2. Blanchard Lions undefeated in district play, 6-1 overall, ranked number 3 in Class 4A. On Friday, Jeff Craig's team hosts the Bridge Creek Bobcats, who are 3-4 in the season, 1-3 district play. Mark, any chance for an upset in Blanchard on Friday?
I don't think so. Not a long trip for Bridge Creek, so they won't have to really have to deal with their sorrows very long on the bus. So it's going to be Blanchard in this game. It's going to be Blanchard pretty big.
Tom?
Well, we talk every week about how tough 4A2 is. Let's take a moment here to lament the fate of the Bridge Creek Bobcats. They were 3-1 to start the season. Then they hit the gauntlet. Losses to Bethany, Newcastle, and Tuttle by a combined score of 127-6. And now they got Blanchard on the road. The Lions have already handled Newcastle and Tuttle by double digits and have climbed to number 3 in Class 4A. I don't know where Jake is going to set the line on this one, but I'll go with Blanchard and give the points.
Tony Wilson.
I wouldn't give the points just yet, Tom. I think Blanchard's going to have their top 2 receivers aren't going to play this week, but I don't think that will matter with Bridge Creek. Carson Cooks, the all everything quarterback for the Lions. He'll just be able to turn around and hand it off and look for a running clock though later in the game. It'll be a blowout, but I don't think it'll be as big as people think. Blanchard easy.
Wait, Carter.
Yeah, I'm going with Blanchard as well. Hate to do that to an old friend, Ryan Spangler, who I saw was on staff at Bridge Creek this year. But Blanchard, super impressive. Obviously, 4A is really, really tough, and they're right up there with anyone. So I'll take Blanchard big.
I do like the Ryan Spangler rebounding prop over in this game. So
automatic
he'll fall out of bed and get 15 rebounds.
Jacob Esource.
So last week we mentioned that we were going to talk about pound for pound, who's the best team pound for pound in Oklahoma, who are the best teams pound for pound in Oklahoma. Well, I actually made a top 25 because I have so much free time, and Blanchard found their way into that list at number 23. So they are a solid football team. Bridge Creek in their last 3 district games have scored a combined 6 points in 3 games. And that does not bode well even in a short road trip down the street to Blanchard. I got Blanchard a 35.5-point favorite. And I think I do think Bridge Creek will score 6 points. But I think Blanchard will score 42 points and win. 42-6.
Another game
What's
where
Fairview pound for pound,
Okay.
Jacob? Or Jake?
I have Fairview number 15.
Jake, that
I
sounds like
figured
something
they'd be
you
higher.
need to be a blog post on Squirtle.com.
There you go.
Pound for pound rankings.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, Blanchard is going to be all happy that they had the panel unanimously pick them, but they're going to be pretty upset to know they'd be an underdog against Fairview.
Again, Mike Tyson would not have been an underdog against Oscar De La Hoya. We're talking about pound for pound here.
Okay.
But I would pick Fairview over Blanchard, by the way. But go ahead, Andy.
That would be good content for Squirtle.com, though. So think about that.
All right, let's go to game number 5. We'll go back to Class A. The Minco Bulldogs, 7-0 overall, ranked number 4 in Class A under Coach Wardwall. Minco hits the road to Hinton to take on the Comets, who are 5-2, but have lost 2 straight to Western Heights and Crescent. Tom, Minco 8-0 after Friday?
Class A is so competitive, so good. No class has more undefeated teams in the top 10 with 7, and Minco is one of those at 7-0. They've been cruising, but haven't played a team with a winning record in a month. They will play a team with a winning record this week, and they will have to guard against looking ahead to next week's home date with undefeated Crescent. I've got to give a plug to Minco's head coach, Brock Wardlaw. He is building the kind of program his dad had at O'Keene. He's already in his 9th year. I can't believe that. I still think of him, playing quarterback for O'Keene, but 9th year at Minco, a record of 81-22. He just needs one of those gold balls like he won back in high school. After a 5-0 start, Hinton has come back to earth, back-to-back losses, including 61-7 at Crescent last week. The Comets are playing back-to-back undefeated ranked opponents, and I will predict that Hinton won't lose by 54 points like they did last week, but the Bulldogs will be too much for them.
I see Adam up there texting. I want to say Jeff Craig and Robert Bernard are trying to work out a Squirtle showdown for Fairview versus Blanchard after maybe sometime in December. Mark, would you go for that Christmas special, Fairview?
Yeah, I would definitely go for that.
I'll
I
sell
think
pizzas.
That'd be fantastic.
Minco at Hinton, Mark.
I believe we're going to Minco next week. Is that correct? Can we announce that yet? Yes, we'll be at Minco for the Minco Crescent game. The winner of that will jump Union in the power poll since they have 1 loss on the season, I predict. I think Minco wins this week. The next week game, I can't wait for it. I think both those teams are going to be undefeated, and it should be a great atmosphere in Minco.
Tony Wilson.
Well, Minco, as everybody says, pretty tough there at the 4th ranked team, and I think that they'll prevail handily.
Whit.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Minco as well. The Wardlaw name, obviously, like Tom said, carrying on that tradition. So Minco always a really strong program, and they're going to beat Hinton pretty bad. But I will say, used to play a golf course out in Hinton that was severely underrated. Okay, and it's a shame that thing closed. So I'll give them a little bump because that was a really fun place. So maybe a little closer than Jake's line would say. I'll take Hinton with the points, but Minco to win.
Jacob? It was good. It was good for the nerves there at Sugar Creek Canyon because you could see some prisoners in the background and you could see some snakes, and it was definitely a challenge for sure.
I just want to say this: it's coming down hole 9's cart path as a big guy was kind of scary too. I was hoping that the brakes would hold.
Yeah.
Jacob, Hinton, and Minco.
Yeah, it seems like Hinton has a game every year where they kind of sneak up on a team that's sitting pretty and bite them. And Hinton's again another team that typically is very competitive in every game they play, but that hasn't been the case in the 2 losses. Crescent scored 61 points on them last week, 61-7. I can't remember Crescent scoring 61 points. I mean, not exactly known for their explosive offense. Minco, on the other hand, is known for their explosive offense. I mean, look at some of the numbers they put up this year: 47, 35, 33, 67, 45, 49, and 37 against Christian Heritage. a team that beat Hinton 36-7. So while I think Hinton, will try to keep this game close for as long as they can. I mean, Minko is a far superior team. I got Minko a 20-point favorite at Hinton, and I have them winning 35-14.
Well, hopefully this next game we'll get a little debate going amongst the panel instead of everybody taking the same team. How about this 2A1 matchup, guys? Millwood Falcons 6-1 overall, 4-0 in district play, ranked number 2, Class 2A. OCS 7-0 overall, 4-0 district play, ranked number 8. Mark Rogers gives a preview of this game as Millwood hosts OCS.
Well, there was a stunner last week in 2A District 1. The Blackwell Maroons take out the Hennessy Eagles 24-22. I think that's more points than they scored in the entire season combined. And sources tell me that there was looting in Blackwell after the win, that they were so happy about getting their first victory. So back to the top of the district where OCS and Millwood are playing. Millwood has had a hard time on offense this year. And if you go by comparative scores, OCS is going to be a pretty big favorite in this game. So the Saints are tough. I'm going to take them. I would have picked Millwood at the beginning of the year, but I'm going to take OCS to win this game and win a close one.
Tom?
Mark just mentioned a game last week. I want to throw one in there as well. Our game of the week last week, OBA at Ringwood. OBA won big. I've got to give a shout out to Judd Cheatham. We talk about him on the show. Judd Cheatham, 250, 60 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns last week. And then on top of that, 5 2-point conversions. So he was a beast last week. And I had to give a shout out to him. But this ball game, let's put the spotlight on OCS for a second. They've been good all season, and they're really rolling right now. They've blown out 4 district opponents by an average score of 54-7. Their quarterback is Garrett Wilson, who has completed 64% of his passes, actually 67% of his passes, for over 1,800 yards, and has thrown 23 touchdowns to no interceptions this year. He's got an offer to play at East Central. If he keeps this up, there's going to be more opportunities out there for him. Millwood is still Millwood. They've won 6 in a row since a week 1 loss to Heritage Hall. But lately, they haven't been as impressive as OCS has been against the same district teams. Now, Millwood won this game last year 40-13. That made me pause for a second, but I may be on an island on this one. I'm gonna go with OCS. I'm gonna take OCS in this, and we'll see what happens.
Well, clearly Tom wasn't listening to me if he thought he was going to be on an island earlier, since I'd already picked OCS. And by the way, the Judd Cheatham mention from Tom cashes at 400 to pay 100, so that prop is paid off.
Mark and Tom taking the road team to win at Millwood Stadium on Friday. Let's go to you, Tony Wilson.
Well, Millwood is Millwood, and playing at Millwood is always a tough task, no matter what Millwood does. But like the other 2 prognosticators have said, Millwood's offense, to me, has struggled. Last week, an 18-6 win over Perry. I personally think that OCS is one of the most underrated 2A teams. They are coming in ranked at number 10 on most polls of the Oklahoman and Tulsa world. But I think that their high-powered offense is probably going to be a little bit too much for Millwood this Friday night. I, too, am taking the Saints.
All right. 3 guys taking OCS so far. Whit Carter.
All right. I'm gonna change it up. Obviously, the little that I know about 2A, but I've paid attention recently. It seems like Millwood is like in the middle of the season lull, but this is when they usually turn it on. Always a tough place to play, like Tony said. And I do think OCS, that's they hang their hat on being really, really explosive on offense. But I'll take Millwood in a close game as they start to turn it on towards the end of the year.
Jacob Esource.
Gosh, I thought I was going to be the one that was a surprise pick on this game.
The island is big on this one. The island,
yeah,
is big.
It must be Millwood number 2 in the Daily Oklahoman rankings. OCS number 8. But if you look at the way that these teams have won, Millwood has found ways to win, but struggled to really, put drives together, dominate games, as many people expected they would. Yet they still sit very high in the rankings just because of who they are, Millwood. I just think OCS is the better football team. my formula that I use still has Millwood a 7-point favorite at home, but I got
Yeah,
OCS
please
winning
get
this
some of
game.
that. I'll take
I
the
got
7.
Millwood's a 7-point favorite at home in my formula, but I got OCS winning the game 35-34. So if I were to bet on sports, which I wouldn't encourage that, I would definitely take OCS on the points I'd take a money line because I got them winning this game at Millwood 35-34. Surprise, surprise.
Whit Carter's the one on the island taking Millwood.
That's surprising. That's surprising.
Be really interesting to see how that game turns out on Friday. Let's discuss our 2 Squirtle games of the week. Our first game of the week takes us to 2A2 as the Jones Longhorns travel to Chandler to take on the Lions. Both of these teams undefeated in district play. And by the way, this game of the week will be on ChandlerLions.tv with Tony Wilson on the call for this one. Tom, who takes the commanding lead for district title on Friday?
Well, this is the game of the year in 2A2. Both teams are 4-0 in the district and at least 2 games up on everybody else. Since their loss to Poto a month ago, Chandler has been dominant, scoring 53, 55, 62, and 35 against the lower half of the district. As the Lions go, so has Carson Clagg. During that same 4-game stretch, he's rushed for 130, 243, 170, and 238 yards and has 9 rushing touchdowns as well. Jones isn't afraid to play anybody, and their 2 losses are to Lincoln Christian and Washington. There's no shame in that. Those are 2 of the best teams in the state. They have district wins over the other top half teams in the district, Crossings, Luther, and Meeker. The Longhorns have dominated this series recently, winning the last 10, including 34-7 last year. Recently, Chandler has looked more dominant on paper, but Jones has beaten the better teams, I think. Jones has developed a habit in beating the Lions over the years, and I'm going to say they're not going to kick the habit this season. I'm going to take the Longhorns in this one.
Mark.
Wow, that is going to be tough for Tony to hear. I picked against Chandler earlier, and that was a mistake. I think with Carson Clagg playing so good,
I'd leave too, Tom.
I like the Lions in this game. We were there last year for the game of the week at Jones. Saw one of the greatest halftime shows ever. I think they had all of the youth in Jones were out there in Halloween costumes, and it was an amazing performance. I mean, it was virtuoso off the charts. There was a choreographed dance. We had blue and gold sausage that night, and so Chandler's going to have to put on quite a show to host the Longhorns when they come to town. But I'm going to go with the Lions over the Longhorns.
Go to the guest, the voice of Chandler Lions, Tony Wilson.
Well, the last 2 years we've been at Jones, just how the district realignment assignments have came out. And so it's going to be, I think it'll be a lot more fun, excuse me, having them at Joe Tilford Field Friday night. A lot of people thought that the Crossings game last week, Jake, was going to be a close one, -1, really. And it was probably one of the most dominating games that I've seen the Lions play in quite some while, guys. 35-0 over a good Crossings team that will probably make the 3 or 4 spot in District 2A2. But the balance that we have offensively this year, last year everybody pretty much knew that Casman Hill was going to get the football because he was an all-world everything. This year Carson could get it, and he can go, and Alec Jackson, big strong quarterback, he can throw it. But I think the defense is going to have to really step up in this game. I like the Lions in a squeaker.
Jake and Andy had to fly to Philadelphia to pay off their backers with money taped to their legs and arms and all that stuff last week. There's video of it online. I mean, their lines were so bad that their casino just got popped.
They got pummeled, didn't
they? Yeah.
I had to go see the mob. Yeah.
Yeah. They had to go. They had a recall. They had to go back to the East Coast.
Except I took the Phillies money line game 3 and game 4, and I was there. So
that's how we paid off the mob.
Yeah.
Whit Carter, let's go to you.
Yeah. So the quarterback from Chandler, I've seen some film on him. He's really good. I saw Jones play Lincoln earlier this year, and Lincoln, obviously very good team. Scored a bunch of points, bunch of big plays on Jones. And based on what Chandler's done lately, I think that they can do that to Jones as well. I was thinking back to when the 2 best Chandler teams I've seen was when they beat Davis to win it, and then my senior year they were really, really good. And this team may be one of the better ones they've had since then. I'll take Chandler to win in probably a pretty close game, but I think they're going to score a lot of points on Jones. So I'll take the Lions.
Goober Hall and Davis is still mad about that 2005 championship game.
I imagine he probably is. Yeah, that's fine.
Jake, let's go to you. Chandler or Jones?
Here's an interesting tidbit about this game. Both these teams have, played very tough schedules. Both these teams stepped out of class to play against top tier teams. For example, Jones has 2 losses this year. One is to number 1 and 2A Washington, 34-8. The other one is to number 1 and 3A Lincoln Christian, 56-34. Chandler also has 1 loss this year, and it is to the number 1 team in 4A, Poto. And so these 3 teams combined have 3 losses, but all of them are to teams that are ranked number 1 in their classes and, top of the line teams. And I hope I got that right and didn't just embarrass myself. Chandler, Jones, this is going to be an awesome game. Definitely worthy of a game of the week. Jones sitting at number 3 in the rankings. Chandler hosting this game, number 6, coming off that incredible win against Crossings where they totally exceeded expectations, by 30 plus points at least. Yeah. So Chandler at home, I got him a 4.5 point favorite against Jones. And I got Chandler winning this game, although it's going to be a squeaker. I got Chandler winning 30-28.
Goober Holland was definitely upset about that loss, but way more upset about when Sir Clux-a-Lot lost the Texoma Rooster Derby as a big favorite. So he got caught in a bad spot, and that was curtains.
Great.
It's going to, I guarantee you this, guys, and no kidding aside of me, Jones is a quality program year in and year out, and it's going to be a hell of a game. And I just think that the crowd is going to be tremendous. I think it's going to be standing room only, 2-3 deep. And Jones is going to travel just like when we go to Jones, we travel. And I can tell you this, that when the Crossing game ended, I was excited for a week from Friday night because I'm ready, and I don't know what I'm going to be able to do to contain myself on Friday, being ready to go for this one. And thanks for having us as a game of the week. We appreciate it.
Going to be a fun one to watch on Friday on the Squirtle Network or ChandlerLions.tv. Our second Squirtle game of the week and our final game to discuss tonight, final Squirtle game to discuss tonight, takes us to Class 3A District 2. 3 teams are undefeated in district play in that district, and 2 of these teams face off in Sulphur on Friday. The Marlow Outlaws are the number 3 ranked team in Class 3A. They have 2 tough tests remaining as they face number 6 Sulphur this week, and then number 1 Heritage Hall next week. Sulphur has won 6 games in a row in dominating fashion after dropping their first 2 games of the season to Washington and Davis. Mark Rogers, kick us off.
Well, I saw Marlow play Pauls Valley, and I was really impressed with them. They've got a great team. They're really tough on the edge up front defensively, and they can run the football. So I think Marlow's got a team that will have a lot to say about what happens in Class 3A. To me, there's 2 teams that are a little bit ahead of everybody else. It's Lincoln and Heritage Hall. If you drop it down, I think clearly Marlow is in this mix and Sulphur's in this mix of teams that could be the 3rd best team in the class. But I did talk to a friend of mine today who I really respect, who knows this area of the state, and he said that Sulphur is the more physical team. You can't hold it against them that they lost the game to Washington earlier in the season. I think Washington would be right there competing with Heritage Hall. They had a scrimmage with them earlier in the season and kind of held their own. So both really good teams, really close game. I'm going to go with the home team, Sulphur Bulldogs.
Tom Nelson.
Well, Andy mentioned about how top heavy this district is. You got 3 4-0 teams in 3A2, 2 of them right here. The other one's Heritage Hall. Sulphur's 5-2. They've won 5 straight since losses, as we said, to Washington and then Davis to start the season. They've looked impressive against a not that impressive schedule. They outscored Dixon, Douglas, Pauls Valley, and Lone Grove, 182-14 in those games. Marlow's undefeated, has looked really good doing it. That win at Perkins a few weeks ago looks better and better as the Demons keep winning big. Last year, Marlow won this game 28-10. The winner has the inside track to a home playoff game and a shot at Heritage Hall to win the district because they both play Heritage Hall down the stretch. I'm going to take Marlow in this one. Good game, though, but I'll take Marlowe.
Before we go to Tony Wilson, just to let everybody know, this is the college crew calling this game for Squirtle. We have Todd Miller, who's the voice of OBU Athletics, and Dustin Goodnow, voice of Northwestern and Alva Athletics. They are calling this game, which will be simulcasted on the Sports Animal platforms. So you'll be able to listen to this game on Squirtle.tv or any of the Sports Animal platforms or radio. So Tony Wilson, let's go to you.
Tough game. I mean, this is really a tough one to pick. And don't laugh too hard, but Russell Hobbs gave me my insight for the Sulphur Bulldogs, and so take that for what it's worth. But and I haven't seen much 3As. Been paying attention down in the lower levels. But Russell did say that Sulphur has a lot of team speed, and that may give Marlowe some trouble this week. But I think that in years past, with Marlowe being in 2A, and we went down there 2 years straight in the playoffs, and it didn't fare well for us. But their numbers, I think, in 3A, numbers of players, they're usually in the 75, 76 range for players. It may have play a little bit into the game in the deeper part of the game. I'm going to take Marlowe's experience and physicality and probably a 2-point Marlowe victory.
Whit Carter, the Sulphur grad.
Yeah, so this is, like Mark said, this is going to be smash mouth football. I mean, both of these teams, both of them probably would be prouder to be the more physical team, even if they lost. No, seriously, Sulphur played probably the worst game the program's had in a very, very, very long time. When they lost to Davis, they were so much better than Davis. They just did not show up. They were not focused. But I think it's actually turned into a really good thing that they may have needed, because it really refocused them, got them going, got them into a rhythm on offense. Marlowe's very, very good. Their quarterback is a son of a Sulphur boy, Chad Gilbert. Cade's really good. His brother was really good, and now at Iowa State. Marlowe and both of these teams will make you, to take a turn from Teddy Lehman, they'll make you snap it again. They're not going to give up a ton of big plays. So I expect it to probably be low scoring. But I do think that Sulphur has more team speed, like Tony said, and I think that they can probably find more big plays than Marlowe can. So I will take Sulphur something like 24-20, maybe, but it could probably be a little more low scoring than that. I'll take the Dogs to set up a big matchup with Heritage Hall.
Whit Carter taking the Bulldogs. Before we go to Jacob Dieselhorst, Mark, this is a story that you'll probably recall, but my favorite Sulphur grad story, Dan Townsend. Whit, you remember Dan Townsend?
Yes, I do. I know Dan very well.
Dan was, I think, a 2003 graduate of Sulphur, and a lot of OU fans remember this, but the 2003 season in Norman, Mark, you were a sideline reporter then. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
Playing A&M in Norman. It's 77-0 in the fourth quarter. And Dan Townsend was a walk-on backup fullback who Bob Stoops told to take the handoff and fall down at the line of scrimmage so OU didn't score again. And there was a defensive lineman for A&M, Johnny Jolly, who thought that he tackled Dan Townsend and got up and celebrated like they just won the Super Bowl up 77 or down 77-0. Mark, you remember that?
I don't remember that in the details of that, but that is a great story. That's fantastic.
That was Dan Townsend, the backup fullback from Sulphur. So
what I don't know, that is a huge moral dilemma, because you're a walk-on to be able to score a touchdown to put OU up 84-0. I'm not sure that I would have honored Bob Stoops' wishes there. Now, he would have probably been in big trouble.
Yes.
But that may have, all the glory may have been worth it. I would see maybe a big NIL deal with T-shirts these days with we covered the spread 84-0.
For sure. For sure. Jacob Dieselhorst, let's go to you. Marlowe at Sulphur.
Yeah, both of these games of the week deserve their tags as games of the week. This is an awesome game. It's a top 10 3A matchup. Just like the Jones-Chandler game, it's the number 3 team in the class traveling to play the number 6 team in the class on the road. And, both of these teams, it's going to be who plays better, who doesn't turn the ball over, who makes big plays type of game. What I ended up making my pick based on was I looked at these two teams, what they did in non-conference and on the road. Sulphur and Washington's a wash. I don't fault Sulphur for losing that football game, but then I look at both of these teams' road games, non-conference. Sulphur went to Davis, and like Witt said, may have not played a good game, but lost at Davis. Marlowe, on the other hand, went to Perkins, which is arguably one of the hardest places to win in Oklahoma, and won that game in overtime on the road. And I think that's the kind of edge Marlowe is going to have in this game going on the road at Sulphur. I got Sulphur a 6-point favorite at home. Remember, I always give the home team 6 points. But I got Marlowe winning 34-30 and moving on and on up on the rankings.
Jacob Easthorst taking the Outlaws to win in Sulphur on Friday. Mark and other crew, feel free to chime in here, but let's talk about a couple other games just briefly. Mark, I'm sure you've covered this on your show on the Sports Animal. We get Union in Edmond to take on Santa Fe this week. Bixby, Westmore, Carl Albert at Guthrie should be a fantastic game there in 5A. So what other games kind of grab your attention as we go through non-Squirtle network games?
Yeah, those are two titanic matchups there. You've got, I think that the Guthrie Carl Albert game, Carl Albert's just been dominant. They hammered McGinnis last week. Guthrie's given up 3 points in 7 games so far this year, which is an amazing statistic. They led the state in shutouts last year with 5, and they've already got 1 more through just 7 weeks. So I think it's going to be tough to score for Carl Albert. As good as they are, they're a super team. I think this one's going to be a low-scoring game, but I do think Carl Albert prevails there. And I really don't know what to expect. We talked about maybe that we felt like that it wasn't one of Sulphur's best games against Davis this year. It's hard for me to kind of explain Jinx at times. I mean, I know they got great tradition. They got great players. They've got a great coaching staff there. Jinx beat Union. That was a shocker to me. I think Union might have been considered the team to beat in Class 6A Division I this year, as good as Bixby has been. It's kind of been proven a little different with their loss to Jinx, but I think Union is great. I think they'll beat Santa Fe, but I think it'll be a close one. Santa Fe already has knocked off Jinx. Demarius Robinson is going to be our Sports Animal Player of the Week this week. He's rushed for over 300 yards 2 times and went for 250 and change last week against Norman and 4 touchdowns. He's a great player. So we'll see if Union can stop him, but I think both of those games should be competitive.
Tom, you saw OBA last week in the Squirtle Game of the Week. They go to Garber, a team that's not ranked and maybe doesn't have the record that they would expect. A lot of athletes in Garber, so it should be an interesting game for OBA on the road.
Yeah, I don't know. Garber's quarterback is out for the year. They've had some injuries. OBA was banged up a little bit too. They've had some guys missing. I think OBA is the class of this district. I think they'll roll.
Okay, Tom, liking OBA in that one. So
I like the Trojans. I like Judd Cheatham. We'll throw him in there again.
Taking the Fighting Judd Cheathams to win in Garber. All right, guys. Anything else that we need to cover before we get out of here?
Hey, what year did you graduate from Sulphur?
Football season was 08, so I graduated 09.
Okay, so that'd have been our head coach Jack Gray's senior year. He was our quarterback
Yep.
then. That
Yep.
was finals team.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I want to give a shout out to the Deer Creek football team. They've turned it on of late. They've really started playing, big boy football. They're so good in the trenches. Grady is just a top-notch quarterback. If you guys haven't checked out Grady Adamson, Deer Creek's quarterback, this kid's the real deal.
Really good.
Brady Brewer, their little spy linebacker / strong safety. That kid's flying all over the field, making tackles, making big plays. Mason Smith at wide receiver, he's finally healthy, and he is blowing up every game. That kid cannot be guarded one-on-one. They're a really fun team to watch. So I just want to give a shout out to the Deer Creek team and how well they're doing, and wish them luck the rest of the season. They beat Choctaw in a really huge game a few weeks ago, which if they take care of business should make them district champs. So
I've got another 8-man game to watch this weekend. Sealing and O'Keene up here in Northwest Oklahoma. It's going to be a big measuring stick for O'Keene. O'Keene, we saw them beat Winoka. Winoka struggled a little bit since then, but O'Keene's 6-1. Their only loss is to Laverne, but they got Sealing this weekend, and it'll be interesting to see how the Whippets can hang with Ceilings. So keep an eye on that one in the 8-man ranks, Class B.
Calling for the upset there, Tom?
I don't know if I'll do that, but I think it will be it'll be closer than a lot of people think. I think O'Keene can hang with them, but I don't think I'd call for the upset. Ceiling's pretty good.
And
All
one
right.
to kind of keep an eye on in the 8-man is Turpin. They've had a really good season so far, and they're going to face the top teams in their district. They get Shattuck this week, and I think Laverne coming up after that. So we'll see if the Cardinals can get things going in SB1.
And what's crazy about that, Mark, is that Turpin's last year quarterback is a really good golfer, and the family is a really good friend of mine. And he didn't even play, so that's with the new quarterback this year at Turpin as well.
And you guys are going to make a friend of mine from Turpin, an old friend from the old home days up in Kansas, lives in Turpin now. His son plays for the Cardinals. You're going to make him really happy because he watches this show every week and he's waiting for Turpin mentions. He got one tonight.
Hey, one more thing about pound for pound. If you guys go to
run through your top 25, Jake.
Well, actually, I'm going to direct everybody to a place to find where there is actually a pound for pound top 25 of Oklahoma high school football. So Sports Illustrated is doing a new thing this season where they're actually ranking state high school football teams on their website, and they have like a computer ranking formula that they're using to do it. So if you put Oklahoma high school football rankings into Google, you'll see one of the links is to a Sports Illustrated link, and you go in there, and they actually have a top 25 Oklahoma top 25 list. Just to give you a little taste of it: Bixby 1, Carl Albert 2, Union 3, Wagner 4, Washington 5, Guthrie 6, Heritage Hall 7, Muskogee 8, Poto 9, Owasso 10, and Fairview 15. Hominy 16. So it's really interesting. Coming from a credible publication, unlike me, who lacks all credibility, and talking about high school sports.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I would say
high school football dorks, check it out.
I would say that these days you're still more credible than what SI is today, but at least their website, they're online.
It's cool that a national sports publication like that is doing something like that online, because it's just interesting to see, because they actually have, if you go to that site, you'll see there's actually a place you can click on it, and they have a computer ranking of each class too, of all the teams ranked, that has based on computer ranking. So it's a cool website that I spent way too much time on today when I should have been catching up on my billable hours, right, Andy?
So is the BCS back? Is that they using the BCS formula?
Yeah,
they said on the
Mark
field.
is the ghostwriter for him. Mark's the ghostwriter for that college.
Good job, Mark.
Well,
it's cool. You guys check it out. You high school football geeks out there, check out that Sports Illustrated site. It's really fun.
So nobody's picking Oscar De La Hoya over Mike Tyson, but so how does this work? I mean, I don't get this, because I would not favor Washington over Guthrie if they played.
No, I think what it is really, it's based on like how you perform against teams that are your caliber versus how teams perform against teams that are caliber. Like, for example, Heritage Hall, yeah, they're unbelievable, and they're obviously one of the best teams in any class in Oklahoma, but they're smash everybody they play because they don't really play a hard schedule, because they don't have anybody to play with them until they get to late in the playoffs, other than some of their preseason games. Same thing with a team like Washington, but Washington wins with such just dominance that I think they have propelled themselves. I don't know the answer to that, Mark, but it's an interesting debate to have, and that website is a good place to start. So everybody check it out, and we can maybe talk about it sometime.
Well, SI can be secure in the knowledge those teams will never play each other. They can say whatever the heck they want. So,
well, all I know is Fairview's ranked in the top 25 in Sports Illustrated. I think that's pretty cool. Good job, Yellow Jackets.
Mike Mogwin, former writer for the Norman Transcript, and Ardmore and Ardmore, has got the byline on that. So Mike does a good job. So it's interesting to describe it that way, not necessarily who would win in a game, but how they fared against their opponents. I like it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But here's the thing: what it boils down to is there is so much awesome football in the state of Oklahoma. High school football is, I mean, this is the best time of year, man. We're turning the corner, coming down the stretch now. This is the best time of year for football, and the weather's finally football weather too. So
Keeps us busy.
Absolutely. Well, special thank you to Whit Carter and Tony Wilson for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you
Go
guys.
Lions.
And go Lions. Good luck to Chandler on Friday, and have a great call for that game. Tony, look forward to watching that on squirrel.tv and chandlerlions.tv. For these games that we talked about tonight, you can watch all of them for free, as always, on squirrel.tv or our Squirrel app. Thank you to all of our hosts, and thanks to those viewers who we have every week, like Tom's friend from Turpin. We appreciate them tuning in. We'll be back next week with new guests and 8 more great games. We'll see you then.